Doctors of Audiology at Brentwood Hearing Center can help improve your ability to communicate through better hearing. With over 86 years of combined experience, their Doctors of Audiology will diagnose your hearing challenges and demonstrate the latest hearing device technology to help get you out of the dugout and back into the starting lineup. Give them a call today at 615-377-0420. They're going to help you hear at the Little League game or just talking with friends and family at the dinner table or anything in between. You can also make an appointment online at BrentwoodHearingCenter.com or give them a call at 615-377-0420. Brentwood Hearing Center, better hearing, better life.
Need a job? Unhappy in your current job? Visit tnjobfair.com to connect with employers from all over Tennessee. Take the next steps towards a better career. Get back to
But we have here because now that you guys can see into the studio via Zone TV, where you can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or on Twitter, you can see a little bit about what the studio looks like. Now, what you can't see is all the crap that is in here cluttering this place. Lucas, have you seen what it looks like in here? I was going through. Now we have 2 Coach Mac bobblehead, what do you call it, cutouts.
Yes, we doubled the amount of Coach Mac bobbleheads.
Which is fine. The world could do with more Coach Mac. That, I will reserve judgment on.
Newly vaccinated and maskless Coach Mac fathead.
Which is lovely. Everybody gets the shot. You can go out to dinner. You can stop wearing your mask in the studio. Love to see it. So then we have cutouts, fat heads of Brent Doherty, who based on this cutout, looks like he's lost some weight recently. Good for Brent. We've got Dawn. We've got Blaine. We've got Ramon Foster. There is no Jason Martin. There is no Mickey Ryan. There's no me. Which, maybe I'll complain about it some later date, but I was hired after the cutouts were made, so I'm not that upset about it. What I'm upset about is the fact that there is, I don't know if this is a Ron Slay thing, because I swear he lives here when he's not on live radio on 3HL. He was wandering the halls yesterday during J. Martin Ramon. For what reason? I have no idea. There's a full bottle, like a jug, of something called Uncle Tub's barbecue sauce in the mini fridge in the studio. For what? I have no idea. There is a Chick-fil-A case filled with Chick-fil-A barbecue sauce in front of the station where Slay sits. For what reason? No idea. There's all sorts of Chick-fil-A figurines, so I don't know if Chick-fil-A, we got lunch delivered or something like that, but there's all kind of crap.
An enormous bag of trail mix.
Yeah, I mean, the trail mix, I don't know where it comes from. But this is a massive studio. I'm in here by myself. There are 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could sit 6 people at the radio console where I'm sitting doing the show, okay? There is no reason to have this much junk hovering around us. Who is the hoarder among us here at 104.5 The Zone? Jason Martin, Ramon Foster, Mickey Ryan. Well, Mickey and Blaine aren't in here yet, but so it's J. Martin Ramon or 3HL. Who do I yell at? Because this is unacceptable. I can't live this way.
It's turned into Ron Slay's personal Zondega.
Did he come up with Zondega or did you?
No, that's a Mickey Ryan thing. I was trying to think of the word to combine zone and bodega, and Mickey stepped in.
It's okay. I wouldn't, you struggled finding a way to combine zone and bodega?
Yeah, I'm not proud of that one. Mickey came in pretty quick. He's good at that stuff.
It's a tough scene. But I can't understand how people live this way. Dark Galf on Twitch says, "Oh, poor Buck, his OCD is killing him because of Ron." I just don't understand you don't need any of this stuff. None of this stuff needs to be in here.
It adds character.
Character? No, it looks like somebody who lives in their car. Why are we doing this?
There's a nice new pillow on the casting couch.
That's not the pillow. The casting couch. The pillow is not new, and neither is the casting couch. My war against the casting couch is not yet done. By the way, this thing has to die. And also, why is there still this blood spot behind me where somebody was murdered in the Zone studios? Surely we can have somebody clean the carpet. I'm very upset about the state of things that are just cluttering my workspace. It's the only thing I ask. Cleanliness. That's it. That's not true. I complain about a lot of different stuff. But can we call Slay at some point during today's show and yell at him? Because I think this is his fault. That didn't get overwhelmingly bad until Slay became full time. Once he got in the building, now we can't ever get him out. I'm convinced he sleeps in the green room during his spare time. But I just don't understand what not one jug of barbecue sauce in the mini fridge, but a whole case of Chick-fil-A barbecue sauce sitting in front of his station.
We can call him, but I don't know if I'm on your side about this. I kind of like the way Slay's taken over the studio. We showed up to do the soccer show last night at 9 p.m., and Slay came stumbling out of the break room in his bathrobe. What are you doing here?
Wait, the soccer show is at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, 9 to 10. No, I'm kidding. Slay
I was supposed to say, he
wasn't here at 9 o'clock.
He wasn't actually.
Came out with the mask, the sleeping mask. What are you guys doing here? You know what time it is?
Jack Thies on Twitter says, "The new kid wants to come in and change things in the office, huh? Hell yes. Because I'm right. because everything in here is there's a giant. How many ounces or gallons do you think this Fireball jug sitting in front of Dawn? Like, I don't want to accuse Dawn of having a drinking problem.
Well, that's been there for as long as I can remember.
Is it actual Fireball?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's an actual giant bottle of Fireball.
So why doesn't somebody take it home and drink it instead of letting it
because it's Fireball.
loiter here? Now, listen, I know people in college stick a straw in that thing, and that'd be a day drinking extravaganza. I cannot understand how people can live this way. We'll get to the Julio Jones conversation because there's a report out from Kimberly Martin of ESPN on what is happening with Julio Jones, and we'll tell you why. You know, the Titans seem content to wait this thing out because today is the day that you have all been told that Julio Jones would likely be traded, except for yesterday when Rappaport went on national television and said, yeah, probably training camp. No, you didn't say probably training camp. I'm paraphrasing. But he said it could stretch out to training camp. It could go a while. So then you see this report today from Kimberly Martin of ESPN, formerly of Yahoo Sports. Julio Jones trade rumors. The Ravens and Rams are done pursuing the Falcons wide receiver amid the Titans' buzz. Here's what Kimberly said. She knows for a fact that the Ravens and Rams are no longer pursuing the Atlanta Falcons wide receiver. Martin also said she has heard the Tennessee Titans are strong contenders for Jones, adding that most of the people she has spoken with expect Jones will, quote, probably get traded to Tennessee. So the hype machine continues. The Julio Jones obsession continues. I am cautiously optimistic based on the consistency of the reporting done by a handful of people at this point since Saturday when Mike Florio kind of put it out there into the universe that the expectation around the league right now is that the Titans will end up with Julio Jones for a second-round pick, which basically, if you're the Titans, amounts to a third-round pick because they've been picking in the late 20s the past couple of years. If this is something that remains consistent, if this is something that they are actively pursuing, and it is, there's not any other competition out there for them at this point. This is kind of it, and I'm going to compare it to Clowney because not only does it have the potential to drag out like Clowney Watch did, which honestly I complained about because it's what I do, but Clowney Watch was a godsend last year during the time when COVID shut down the vast majority of sports. Outside of the NFL draft, it was a barren wasteland of a lack of things to talk about, and Clowney basically waiting until, I think, a week before the season began to end up signing with the Titans provided us content that allowed us to get through the sportsless times until football took place. And then football was, the glorious return. It's all coming back to me now. Derrick Henry singing on the ESPN commercial. It's a whole deal. But this Julio Jones situation mirrors it, or at least it mirrors it from the Titans' perspective. They sat back and were always in the mix for Jadeveon Clowney, but they let everybody else basically bid themselves out of the Clowney sweepstakes. They had been consistent in saying, we've had discussions with his representation. Right now, there's nothing to update you on. We'll continue to keep you updated as this process continues. And then the process continued basically until September or the last week of August. They restructured Kevin Byard. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney. And then, things transpired as they did, which was wildly disappointing if you're a Titans fan and you got all jacked up for 6 months about the idea that Jadeveon Clowney would make you a Super Bowl contender. Played 8 games, did largely nothing for this team. The Julio Jones situation has the potential to go down this same path. What I mean by that is that Julio doesn't get to decide where he goes. The Titans are looking around at everybody else who, dipping their toes in the water, pulling their feet back out, like the Rams, the Ravens. Seattle is hovering around there but doesn't really have the kind of capital that the Falcons are looking for because they don't own a first-round pick coming up this year. And right now, definitively, I'm telling you, the Titans do not have a first-round pick on the table. They're just chilling. They know that all they have to do is restructure Ryan Tannehill to be able to bring Jones in on his salary, and that now Atlanta has the ability to make the finances work better for them. This is I don't want to call it a wait and see mentality because they've got to bid in on him. But they're allowing the game to come to them, which is much of the same tactic that they used in their pursuit of Jadeveon Clowney.
But how much control does Julio have here? Because we had a caller call in, didn't want to be on the air, and asked, what if Julio does have his preference of cities? We heard him tell Shannon Sharp, nah, man, I don't want to go to Dallas. I want to win. Same thing with Jadeveon Clowney last year. There were destinations that Clowney marked off. Didn't the Browns offer Clowney a pretty good sum that he basically turned down before ended up signing with the Titans last offseason? So there has to be an element of control of where Julio wants to be or doesn't want to be, and the Titans just seems like haven't been eliminated yet, like Dallas has.
Why are you saying they have to be? They could trade Julio Jones to Dallas. He can be pissed about it, but it doesn't matter. If Dallas can give the Falcons the best deal, that's where they're going to send it.
Right. It is different because he's not a free agent like Clowney was last year. But if Julio Jones is telling the Cowboys, I do not want to come play for you, are the Cowboys going to trade for Julio Jones?
I mean, probably because he's Julio Jones. They'll get him in there and they'll figure it out on the back end. Jerry Jones seem like a rational individual to you? Does Jerry Jones strike you as somebody who's willing to take no for an answer? I don't want to go to the Cowboys. I want to win. I'm just wearing the hoodie. No, all Jerry saw was Julio Jones in a Cowboys hoodie. That's all Jerry Jones saw. Now, I'm not saying that the Cowboys are in on this. I don't think the Cowboys' finances would allow them. Well, actually, I don't know that to be certain, so I won't speak recklessly in that way. I don't know what the Cowboys' financial situation is right now. I'm just speaking in terms of this man has no control over where he goes. This is not a Deshaun Watson situation. This is not a no-trade clause. This is a player under contract who's got a lot of money on the books, and his team needs to get him the hell out of here because they can't move forward. He is literally restricting their ability to do much of anything when it comes to personnel. Now, we'll talk about why most of the pressure at this point is on Atlanta, not the Titans, not another team that would be pursuing Julio Jones. And I'll tell you what that reason is here in just a second and what Julio Jones has the potential to add to this team most. Rhett Bryan from Titans Radio gave me a really nice factoid. I think he was on with J. Martin Ramon this morning, so maybe the morning show audience has already heard it. But we will provide to you that context. Coming up next, and if you want to get involved with the Julio Jones conversation, 615-737-1045. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Reising. This is 1045 The Zone.
J. Mart and Ramon. One of them made it to the top. The other, well,
all I'm telling you, one of us
Jump in on the conversation. There's also a list of like top 25 biggest additions in NFL free agency this year that Mike Clay has got everybody all hot and bothered about. We'll talk about that here in a second. But in the meantime, Ian Rappaport was on NFL Network yesterday talking about the Julio Jones situation. And he was adding some context to this based on everybody's associating the June 2nd date with the date that would be Julio Jones' first opportunity, or Atlanta, the Falcons' first opportunity to move Julio Jones. So Rappaport added this context to the Julio Jones conversation.
So you're right. Obviously, today is sort of today at 4 is a big deadline. And for a couple teams, Broncos, for instance, they get, some salary cap relief, and will probably allow some teams to sign some more rookies.
Okay.
I just don't know that it's going to be like, I hang up the phone with you. I mean, watch, it probably won't.
Well, you
I
did
hang
that
up the
last
phone with
time.
you and Julio gets traded. I don't think it's going to be, because it's not a real deadline. Like, it's like a cap deadline, but Julio's not showing up in Atlanta anyway, so it's not like they need to do it. Like, the only real deadline to me is training camp. So, like, a deal could get done this week, sure. Falcons didn't trade him before the draft, so if they're going to be, holding out for a better pick, if they're going to be that patient, like, they may not trade him this week either. But this is sort of the first opportunity we have to see, like, does some team go, we're going to up our offer a little bit, we're going to do the deal, we're going to make sure we get him, and we're just going to move on there. This is like the first chance we get to see that.
So that's Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network on the Pat McAfee Show yesterday, talking about Julio Jones and when he could potentially be moved. So everybody's looking at the teams, or really the list of teams has dwindled drastically as to who's actually in play for this dude. Because right now, the only thing that I can find that's concrete is the Titans and the Seahawks. And the Seahawks, it's, again, Clowney Watch 2.0 all over again. That's the same conversation we were having with Jadeveon Clowney over and over and over again. But I digress. So you're looking at the teams who are involved in this conversation. You're saying, okay, the pressure is on the teams who need to make a deal for Julio because the sweepstakes are going to be nuts, right? Well, it doesn't seem to be that way. And in fact, the pressure isn't on these teams that are trying to trade or could try and trade for the services of Julio Jones. We went through the teams who have the least amount of salary cap space available right now. Right now, you only count the top 51 contracts of every NFL team against the salary cap until roster cutdown day, when the top 53 go into effect, and then your roster is finalized against the hard cap. This is something that they do to allow for, practice squad players, undrafted free agents, guys that you bring in during camp. It's just a way, because everybody would be, like, if you have a 90-man roster, you would immediately be miles over the salary cap. Every NFL team, it'd be impossible to do. So you're looking at the situation, Rappaport saying the deadline is training camp, but it's going to get done sooner than that for one reason, and one reason alone. The Atlanta Falcons have the second least amount of available cap space, just north of $300,000 right now when it comes to top 51 contracts. Meaning that until they move this dude, they don't have the ability to sign their rookie class. They cannot get these guys under contract that they've just brought in, the future of the franchise, right? Arthur Smith's new regime, Terry Fontenot's new regime, Kyle Pitts, and everybody else that the Falcons brought in as a part of their 2021 draft class. They can't sign these dudes until they get Julio Jones the hell off their books. And there's not necessarily, there is a deadline to sign these guys, these rookies, but it certainly increases the pressure on Atlanta in a way that is noticeable, in a way that's absolutely going to make a difference. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation about Julio Jones. There are so many reasons why this makes sense for a team like Tennessee, not just because of the window that they have to contend, not just because of where they are and who they have playing for them and all the recruiting pitches by the players and all of Julio Jones' reported interest in playing for either the Titans or the Patriots. We don't know how much that has changed since that came out from Chris Sims about a week ago at this point. But Rhett Bryan gave me this stat in the green room, and I'm not sure if he used it on J. Martin Ramon or not, but we were talking about explosive plays. The Titans lost a substantial amount of explosive plays in losing Jonnu Smith and losing Corey Davis, the receptions out of the slot, understanding that Adam Humphries only played in 7 games last year, that there wasn't a ton to be lost given how little he was able to contribute, but you're losing about 45% of your receiving yards from the 2020 season. So, not only that, you can't replace 3 players with one dude. Although Julio Jones, you probably add the 3 of them together, you get one Julio Jones, but we're not doing the math that way. Where you look at it most is the amount of explosive plays that Julio Jones is responsible for. Now, when it comes to scoring, he only played in 9 games last year, and it was tied for the second fewest amount of points that Julio Jones himself was responsible. Julio Jones was responsible for 18 points in 2020, cut in half. 36 in 2019, down to 18. He played 15 games in 2019 as opposed to the 9 in 2020. He's not he doesn't score an outrageous amount of touchdowns, largely because the attention goes to Julio Jones. So things open up for Calvin Ridley. And while Austin Hooper was an Atlanta Falcon, Hayden Hurst while he was there, all of these different guys that are allowed to eat because of Julio Jones' presence. So the touchdown production, something that you would look at, but not necessarily be blown away by. The thing that stands out to me is the fact that this dude had 16 plays, 16 passes or receptions for over 20 yards, X plays, they like to call them, explosive plays, 2 for over 40. What this Titans offense was able to do, now 2019, I remember asking Arthur Smith about this and him thinking, him basically saying it's a little bit of an anomaly, the fact that we had the 3rd most explosive plays in football. Those are difficult to recreate. And then they damn near did it again in 2020. Now you're looking at guys who can produce yards after catch, yards after contact. This is what this Titans offense eats off of. Julio Jones is capable of doing that in a big way. In 9 games last year, he had 16 plays of over 20 yards. He's responsible for over 200 plays of over 20 yards in his career. Explosive plays is how this Titans offense makes its bread and butter. They're not necessarily, Tannehill does have the ability to bomb one down the field every once in a while. Khalif Raymond, 70-plus yards in the playoffs against Baltimore in that divisional game, 2019 postseason. But a lot of these long completions that Tannehill throws are because he has guys that can get yards after contact, yards after the catch. Julio Jones would replace a majority, not a majority, but a good portion of the explosive plays that this Titans offense stands to lose, because that's the question I get an awful lot, is how is this Titans offense going to be able to, basically stand pat with where they were, north of 30 points a game last year, or improve? And largely my answer is I don't expect them to. But this would do a lot to solve those concerns, assuage those fears about you taking a step back, when largely I think most people are worried about the defense when they've done all they can to replace the defense and increase the efficiency there. Now the burden falls on the offense. How do you replicate that production? Julio Jones would go a long way in that regard. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation this Wednesday morning. Cousin Danny is in the borough. He wants to talk about Julio. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Buck? Good to talk to you again, fam. So just kind of harping on a couple things I've heard about Julio today. If legitimately the first-round draft pick is not an actual thing and they're actually talking about second- and third-round picks to trade for Julio, I'm paying that all day. And I'll tell you why. We've been talking a lot about how we don't expect the Titans to be able to score 30 points a game next year, and I don't think that our offense will be improved from last year if we get Julio signed. But I still think that 30 points a game is very much attainable if we add Julio Jones and a serviceable tight end to help with some end-line blocking in those certain, formations, and maybe a pass catch here and there. But that, I mean, with the defensive upgrades, that puts us into contention right away. And just kind of what you guys were talking about with the last soundbite you played, what benefit is there for Atlanta to wait until training camp to get this done? The sooner the better for everybody with this. Hey, it's just hanging over everyone's head, but why the heck wouldn't Atlanta want some concrete answers to what they need to do with their roster this season and next before training camp starts? Why would they wait at all? I don't get what Ian Rappaport's trying to say there.
Hey, thanks for the call, Danny. Is he in the middle of a monster truck rally? What the hell is that? Danny calls into the zone a fair amount. That's probably the third or fourth time that he's called into the show. He sounds like he's in the middle of he's at the Nashville Speedway or something like that, ripping around the track.
Murfreesboro Speedway,
whatever. What is that? I say 615-737-1045. Yeah, I mean there is no benefit to Atlanta in waiting. All it does is increase now, the longer Atlanta waits, the more beneficial it is to you, to be honest with you. Yes, it does create the increased chance of more bids coming in for Julio. The longer teams have to sit back and wait, the more desperate or the more anxious ownership gets and puts a little pressure on the people responsible for making personnel decisions. Hey, go get me this new shiny toy. You have my blessing if you think this can put us over the top. It does create that vacuum for there to be more bids that come in on Julio. But it also increases the pressure on the Falcons because they got stuff they want to get done. And Julio is holding the entire organization, I don't want to say hostage, but it's really, really in a bad position right now, given the financial inflexibility that they're dealing with. Cousin Danny has written it on YouTube. Whine more, Buck. My AC is broken and I had my window down. I'd sweat it out. I can't hear you.
But he makes a good point that if Julio happens and the Titans are able to get some kind of upgrade at tight end with Ferkser still on the roster, should the expectation not be to match or come close to last year's production offensively?
I'm never going to – I will do some research on this for the radio show maybe tomorrow or Friday later in the week just to kind of understand how big a drop-off NFL offenses typically go through. I'll look at like the last 5 years or something like that so I can get a good enough sample size to bring actual information to the table instead of just saying, well, it's tough for them to replicate 30.1 points per game because I don't want to keep harping on that without stats. I'm sure there is precedent. I'm sure somebody like Patrick Mahomes has done that. I'm sure the Patriots with Tom Brady have done something like that, but I'll need to do a little further research to be able to provide legitimate context to see how easily replicated something like that is. People are going to have that expectation. I just don't necessarily think it's a fair expectation. You lost your coordinator. You lost your wide receiver, we'll say 1B in Corey Davis. You lost your top tight end. You lost your slot receiver. It's difficult, which, every NFL team has these kind of problems. But I'm trying to keep expectations relative. So if they come out and they're scoring, 27 points per game, and they've got a better defense, well, you can't be that pissed off at the offense because the team is more well-rounded, and you're not having to create that kind of scoring production to be able to make sure that you win. 615-737-1045. Steve is in Nashville. He wants to talk about Julio Jones. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, well, it's just a thought process, but of course, they talk about tons of money. But when he's looking at these different locations, or any of these guys look at different locations, and you step back and say,
Steve, man, I don't know if that was your phone line issue or our phone line issue. We apologize, but give us a call back. Try again, because I think you were making some good points about the finances, but it just sounded like you were sinking into the sea, the static sea. Lucas, man, we got to figure out this phone stuff. I can't live this way. It's like the studio. I can't live with all the clutter. Steve, give us a call back. We'll try to let you make your point again, but that was, we can't do that to the audience. 615-737-1045. is how you jump in on the conversation. We'll see if Zach has a better phone line. He wants to talk about Julio. Go ahead, Zach.
What's up, Buck? So first things first, I want to tell you guys it is actually the Glayville Super Speedway, not the Murfreesboro Super Speedway. I want to make sure we get that right on air here.
Important clarification. Thank you for that.
No problem. Julio. So going back to last year, tell me this. Who do you pick, Julio, or do you pick Jonnu, and do you pick Corey? How much production is that gonna give you? I mean, to me it's clear it's Julio. what Jonnu do last year? Jonnu did not play much, and when Jonnu played, Jonnu, a big play here and there is cool. We got Ferk. We got Michael Pruitt. Julio's the man. We got to get him.
Wait. Zach,
Tighten up.
Zach,
Oh,
no.
yeah. Buds boys.
Hang with me for a second, Zach. You're not getting off the hook that easy, buddy. I appreciate you calling in. Do you know how many games Jonnu Smith missed last year?
I don't.
He missed 2, so it's not a lot. He was one of the best scoring tight ends in football until Taylor Lewan got hurt, and they had to keep him in to keep blocking. You don't have Michael Pruitt on the roster. Currently, your tight ends consist of Ferkser, Jeff Swaim, Pinkney, I guess, if he's going to show up to OTAs, and a bunch of undrafted dudes and a guy that got suspended for PEDs last year. You're asking me if I would pick Jonnu and Corey versus Julio in 2020? They both played many more games than Julio Jones played last year, and they nearly tripled up his scoring production. Zach, you're way off base on that.
Julio is a generational player. He may be on the downside, but man, if this offense can get it together and we got a little bit of defensive production from that secondary, we might be tough to beat.
Well, that I will accept, but there's a little bit, it's like misinformation there. We got a lot. I got a lot to clean up there. Zach's just out here lobbing all kinds of bombs at me about guys that did or didn't play in production that was or wasn't there, and who is actually on the roster. Come on, buddy. Got to help me help you. It's like A.J. Brown. Help me help you. Julio. That's what they're going to say when you score a touchdown. That's what they're going to say when you make a catch. They don't even do that for me. We need to keep that Julio sounder around. I know I'm putting you under pressure right now, Lucas. But that I can't get enough of that video. It makes me very, very happy. A.J. Brown on TikTok. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. Corey is in Nashville. He wants to talk tight ends. Go ahead, Corey.
Hey, Buck. I called yesterday and was talking about Julio being that last piece, and then after I got off, you quickly eviscerated that by saying that tight end is a piece that we're missing. So I'm thinking of possible tight end, options outside of just Ferkser, and not really many are coming to mind outside of maybe bringing back Delaney, who's, almost 37, 38 years old, and then Zach Ertz, maybe, but he's also washed at this point. So do you have any other realistic tight end options for us outside of just Ferk, Swaim, and maybe an undrafted or two, and I'll hang up and listen.
Hey, sure, Corey. I appreciate the call. I hope I didn't eviscerate him. Eviscerate sounds very, very mean. But I just picked apart the point. So, like, if you're looking at tight ends that are available right now, Michael Pruitt is still out there. Now, he took a visit to the San Francisco 49ers, and you saw, of course, the report that Delanie Walker was also having a workout with the San Francisco 49ers at this point. The tight end pickings out there are quite slim. Now, I've pulled up the available tight ends still on the market in 2021. Jesse James is still out there. Tyler Eifert, Virgil Green. We brought up Michael Pruitt. Luke Stocker, who's been on this team. Is Trey Burton really still out there at 30 years old? There are guys that have been. I did not say Ertz. Ertz is not available on the open market. Ertz is still under contract with the Philadelphia Eagles, and in fact, a report came out yesterday that the Philadelphia Eagles were not interested in letting Zach Ertz walk without some kind of compensation, meaning that they would not be interested in just flat out cutting him for some team to come out and vulture. Like Jake Butt, who's got one of the funniest names in all of professional football. Like, there are guys that you can probably find that could be made serviceable in this offense. Because I see people bringing up in my Twitter mentions right now, O.J. Howard. Again, he's under contract. We've talked about David Njoku, O.J. Howard, and Zach Ertz. Those three guys, all under contract. Two of those teams have said, well, Njoku, the Browns have said that they're interested in keeping him, and he seems to kind of have backed away from his trade request. You look at Zach Ertz, they're hanging on to him at this point until they get something for him, meaning you would have to give up something to get Zach Ertz instead of picking him up off the market. The O.J. Howard situation has largely gone quiet, and I bet Tom Brady wants to figure out if he can use him before he lets the Buccaneers personnel part ways with O.J. Howard in some form or fashion. but we'll continue this conversation. You guys have loaded up the lines. We want to make sure we get to it. We are going to have a quick conversation with Trevecca head baseball coach Chase Sane, who is going to join us. We want to shine a little bit of a local spotlight on a team that's headed to the Division II College World Series. So hang with us. We'll continue to take your calls on Julio Jones. We'll talk to Chase Sane coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
There's never an off season. Here we go. The Titans play on 104.5
Thanks, guys, and I appreciate you guys having me on this morning. This is awesome.
No doubt about it. So what's this ride been like for you, Coach? Because I know you're in your first season as the head coach. You've been an assistant for quite some time with Trevecca. How much have you enjoyed this ride and the growth that you've seen from your team?
Well, it's been pretty surreal, and it's been some highs and lows. There's been some really stressful moments, but you just said it right, man. And I want to, and I've had a lot of people tell me the same thing too. And I hope that I can just sit back and really just kind of look back at everything that this team has accomplished and really just enjoy this, because man, there's been some really cool moments that have happened this year, and I couldn't have done it with a better group of guys. I mean, this team is incredible, and these guys are just really, really special. And just like you said, I'm trying to enjoy it as much as I can now, and I think I can breathe a little bit after that last game of the regional. That's for sure.
At @CSane_TNU is where you can follow Coach Chase Sane on Twitter of Trevecca Baseball. What can you give us a moment, Coach, where you had the opportunity to kind of take a step back while all of these things were going on, or has it really just been up until this point where you've gotten through the regional, you've had the opportunity to take a break and say, wow, this has been so cool to see the accomplishments that we've been able to have on the field and as a group together? Or during the season, is that impossible to do? Because I feel like it's tough to kind of compress that way.
Well, there's been some really cool moments, and it kind of gets overshadowed sometimes with some other of the stresses of the COVID testing and all the protocols that you have to go through. But when you're in the dugout and in the middle of a game, there's some really cool moments that have happened. And for instance, when we went to the conference tournament, our GMAC tournament, our COVID stuff has been really good. Our guys have done a great job, and they've stayed in their bubble, but we had one player test positive right before we left to go to the tournament, so we had to leave 11 players home right before our conference tournament. And and then I just had to, it stinks for the guys, and some of the seniors had to miss their last conference tournament of their careers, but it was what it was, and we went there, and I just told the team we're going to go compete, and we're going to make this thing happen any way we can. And I'll tell you, I had one of those moments in the semifinal game at the GMAC tournament. I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, man, this team is incredible. Like we are doing this with our backs against the wall, missing some of our teammates that are not here, and these guys just find ways. They just do not give up. And so yeah, I've had a couple of those moments, and it's been pretty cool to see. There's no doubt.
Coach Chase Sane of Trevecca Baseball here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Coach, what has been the key to your guys' success over the course of this season? Because the run that you've been on, heading into that regional, you'd won 11 straight games. You've had an exceptional record over the course of this season. I know it's difficult to pinpoint one thing in a team sport because there are so many things that factor into the course of successes or failures of a season. But what has kind of been the rallying point for you guys to be able to advance to the heights that you have?
Yeah, consistency, I think, has been the biggest key, and in a lot of different ways. I know that's kind of a broad term, but our guys have showed up every single day with the same attitude. They show up wanting to get better, excited to be here. Just kind of like I told them early in the fall, enjoy every second of this. You don't know when you're going to get this back. Enjoy it. And just have a blast spending time with your teammates. And they've been consistent with that all year. And then also on that consistency side, I would say that our pitching has been really, really good all year. And we struggled offensively in some games, and our pitchers have done a great job of just keeping that game close. And we've kind of been like the cardiac Trojans. Is somebody, I don't know who put that out, but it was a pretty cool term because we've come back in so many baseball games. And our pitchers have just done an unbelievable job of keeping those games close, and then our offense just kind of take control of the game later, and vice versa. There's been some days where our offense has carried us, and our pitching has been a little down. So, we have a lot of older guys on this team, and a lot of guys that have played a lot of innings and have a lot of experience at the college level, and obviously that helps a ton. I mean, you can't create that. That's just something that we've had, and so consistency and just having that that older, more experienced lineup has really helped us stay consistent throughout this year.
Coach, been really cool to kind of have a front row seat to y'all's run this season, broadcasting a lot of your games and the consistency that your guys have maintained throughout all the ups and downs, obviously, with the COVID that sort of settled down in the latter part of the year. But offensively, you talk about struggling at points. One guy who really hasn't is Braden Odom. He leads your team in home runs with 8, batting .361. And really cool to see him hitting for the cycle in the regional championship game that stamped your ticket to the College World Series in that win over Davenport. So I want to ask you, have you ever coached somebody at the collegiate level to hit for the cycle, and how special was it for your most consistent offensive player to have that accomplishment in the most important game of his career and arguably the most important game in Trevecca baseball history?
No, Lucas, I haven't. I've never coached a guy that has hit for the cycle, and to do it like you just mentioned in that type of atmosphere, and it was kind of crazy. Man, nobody had even really thought about it or said anything about it, and then he hit that ball, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, he's supposed to hit for the cycle," and he got to third, and it was just like, I cannot believe that this kid just hit for the cycle in the biggest game of his career. But that just Braden, and like you've seen it all year, Lucas, and you've seen him play quite a bit, and I wish you could have seen him 2 or 3 years ago, because the work that kid has put in to get himself where he is today is incredible. He's one of the hardest workers on our team. I know that sometimes coaches say that about their best players, and it sounds cliche sometimes, but I'm telling you, this kid is a grinder, and he does whatever it takes. And he's gone off and played summer ball every year, and he's just grinded it out and has become an outstanding center fielder and hitter at the college level.
He is Coach Chase Sane of Trevecca baseball, heading to the 2021 NCAA Division II College Baseball World Series. They begin play in their 8-team double elimination tournament Saturday, 1 o'clock Central Time is when you can catch it. Coach, again, congratulations on you and your team's success, continued success through this tournament play, and we appreciate you taking some time. I'm sure you're busy right now.
Well, thanks, Buck. Thanks, Lucas. I appreciate you guys having me on this morning, and this is exciting, man. This is going to be a fun run for sure.
No question. Nashville's team. We're all in. We are now a Trevecca baseball team without question. Coach Chase Sane, kind enough to give us some of his time here on 104.5 The Zone. All right, you guys have waited patiently on the phone lines. You guys have opinions on Julio Jones. We're going to rattle through them coming up next, and we will continue the conversation about the Titans, Julio Jones, and everything else happening in the world of the NFL. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Insight, opinion, and expertise.
before you even talk about that, because Trifecta and, of course, Vandy making their way hopefully to another trip to Omaha, and the national sounds of their recent win streak. National baseball's on fire, so it's
in good shape.
Shout out to that,
No, without question. It's very, very healthy, the sport of baseball in Tennessee right now.
I love it. If it's a baseball fan, I love it. So go baseball. As far as Julio, I don't know if something you guys have talked about already, but I would, I'm getting all the goosebump feelings over here, and would love to know what y'all have to say about the thought of Julio and A.J. Brown, just two complete, physical, just specimens, athletes, hopefully lighting up, teams one-on-one coverage, and what that would mean for arguably one of the best running backs already in Derrick Henry, what that would mean to the running game.
We appreciate the call, Steve. I mean, I imagine. There it is. A.J. Brown via TikTok. Can I get that one more time, Lucas, please? Julio. Should we do that after every Julio call we
Every
get?
call.
Just that would be such a thing for us to do, is take something that's so innocent, so pure, something that by all consensus everybody loves, and we just make it the most annoying thing
Run it
possible.
into the ground.
Like the vibes. Justice. So, yeah, I mean, I imagine, to Steve's question, what would it look like for the best running back in football? Of course, talking about Derrick Henry. I imagine it looked a lot like last year. I mean, the expectation is so high for this football team right now. I don't know if you guys are looking at this the same way that I'm looking at it. Whereas I'm looking at the Titans right now, without Julio Jones, I'm saying, okay, I'm prepared for the offense to look a little bit worse. Maybe like 5% less good, which is grammatically awful, but, forgive me. I'm not looking for the Titans offense at this point. Would it be nice? Sure, if you're a Titans fan. Is that something that they're going to say that the expectation is? Of course, they're not going to tell you that they're mentally preparing to take a step back. But if they get anywhere close to what they were doing last year, you'd be in fantastic shape. Consider this. If Derrick Henry rushes for 1,500 yards this year, he will be the first running back to do it in NFL history coming off a 2,000-yard season. It's a very, very difficult situation for him to have to replicate, for the Titans offense to have to replicate. So I'm looking at Julio as the replacement to try and keep this thing a little more on the rails instead of seeing like a significant step back in terms of offensive production. You guys, I don't know why people want to discredit Corey Davis this way, but Corey Davis was really good for this offense. Now, none of it happens without Ryan Tannehill. The bones of this team were there with Marcus Mariota. You saw how much better it got when you had a legitimate starting franchise quarterback. For them to be able to build upon last year would require them to still have largely the same pieces in place. And it's not like the entire offense got blowed up the way that the defense did. But this is certainly not something that I'm looking at and saying, okay, he's going to make them better. Julio Jones is going to make them better than they were last year. No, you're just trying to keep it on track at this point. 615-737-1045 is how you get in on the Julio Jones conversation. Also, don't forget, if you want to jump in early for the dumbest thing in sports, that's coming up next. But we go to Gorilla in Texas, who's been waiting patiently. Good morning, Gorilla. How are you?
What's going on, Buck?
Not much, my guy. How we living?
Man, check this out. I want to say this to you and to the whole Titan Nation. This thing is checkers with chess, not checkers. I call it the Julio Jones effect. Imagine, let's just say, like you brought up Corey Davis. Who's really scared of Corey Davis in the NFL? Let's just be honest. Nobody. Corey Davis was facing inferior cornerback coverage. He was dealing with the tools. He was rarely doubled. You are going to have to double Julio Jones. Julio Jones is the type of receiver that will take over a game, Buck. If you don't play him honest, you are not stacking the box against the Titans. Look for Derrick Henry to have something around 1,500 yards with 17 games. That's a fact. If you get him, you instantly become better. That's just my opinion. The tight end loss, all of that, man, I'm not worried about that. That's an old regime, an old system. Man, I believe that we will have a prolific offense this year if we're able to get Julio Jones.
Man, Gorilla, I appreciate the call. Listen, you were prolific last year. And these are the guys that you're dismissing, right? You say, I mean, I don't know. I'm not out here calling Corey Davis a scrub or anything like that, or Johnny Smith a scrub, but you're saying that the inferior guys who helped you put together a prolific offense, you're going to continue. And I'm not out here making the case that Julio Jones isn't significantly better than Corey Davis. That's not what I'm saying at all. Don't misunderstand me that way, please. What I'm saying is that you are trying to replace three guys at this point, understanding that you may not think a lot of Adam Humphries. He may not have been available for the majority of the season yet again, or the majority of his time here even, understanding that he dealt with injuries both in his first year in Tennessee and his second. There is production for three guys that you're asking one dude to replace. Is Julio Jones capable of that? Probably somewhere close. I don't think they're going to be – I'm not saying that they're going to be a worse team because they let Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, and Adam Humphries walk to potentially get Julio Jones. I'm just saying that the expectation needs to be reasonable about what it is that you're asking this man to come in and do. And if he doesn't quite reach the heights that you're setting for him, I mean, you got to understand that you did this to yourselves. You played yourself. Lucas does this all the time. Every time he asks me a question, and then I immediately send him scurrying to all corners of the internet to look it up for me because I make the rules. You played yourself.
Yeah, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus.
I know you do, bud. But coming up next, it's time for the thing that we do every Wednesday. It's time for the dumbest thing in sports this week. Get in on the lines, load them up, 615-737-1045 with your nominees. 615-737-1045. The dumbest thing in sports this week, Lucas and I have our own that we will bring to the table. We know that you guys will bring it strong as well. That's what's coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The guys like to talk, and you like to listen. Blaine and Mickey. This afternoon,
Let's take a quick breather. We'll come back to the Julio Jones conversation in a little bit. Don't forget that Will Compton joins us coming up in the next hour as well from Bussin' with the Boys. We'll talk about some OTA stuff that is on the horizon because, of course, I'll be out, hopefully, if this rain stops. I don't know if we're allowed in the bubble anymore. We haven't been allowed in the bubble in so long that I don't know if the weather is inclement, if they will allow us to be in there. But I'm vaccinated, so hopefully so. 615-737-1045. What is your nominee for the dumbest thing in sports this week? With that being said, let's go ahead and fire up old Rhett Root Brian. What we got?
Let's be honest. You've already seen something this week that made you say,
What the is this?
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
Something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot. You are really dumb. For real. It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Reising Show.
Get off our show.
615-737-1045. That's how you get in on the bidding. Lucas and I will lead this thing off. You guys have chimed in on the socials. You have been prepared for this all week long. Let it out. Let the hate flow through you. What is the dumbest thing in sports this week, Lucas Panzica?
The Oakland A's feeding their minor leaguers Firefest food. Did you see this?
No, what does this mean?
Firefest
food.
A Twitter account. Do you remember Firefest?
I never saw the documentary.
Okay.
I'm like one of the few people who did not.
The debacle of a music festival in the Bahamas where the viral picture that came out was a styrofoam plate where the food they were serving guests was literally a piece of bread and a piece of cheese and then a little bit of lettuce and tomato.
Love to see it.
A Twitter account called Advocates for Minor Leaguers tweeted, players in the Oakland A's organization shared these photos of their recent post-game meals. No employer would serve these meals to employees they care about. Why are the A's serving them to their future major leaguers? And there is what looks like an exact replica of the Firefest meal of bread, cheese, and one piece of lettuce and one measly tomato and a little bit of coleslaw.
Did they do it like side by side with the Firefest plate?
No, there should be a side by side, and I think I might do that. And then there's another picture of a tortilla with like one tiny little piece of chicken, and then like 2 strips of bell pepper. And this is what they're feeding their their minor leaguers. Dave Cavell, and I might have mispronounced his name, the president of the Oakland A's tweeted it, said this was totally unacceptable. When we found out several weeks ago, we terminated the third-party vendor. We apologize to our players, staff, and coaches. We will redouble our efforts to provide the best options for our team at every level.
That's so lame. This is like what happened with the women's Final Four in the weight room. Like, everybody knows what's happening. Everybody knows the kind of food or the kind of service or lack thereof that these minor league baseball players are being served. And as soon as somebody takes a picture, puts it on the internet, and shames the organization into actually doing something about it, then they take action. Then they say, oh, we have seen the error of our ways. We will immediately redouble our efforts to correct this. We have parted ways with the food vendor that has provided such inadequate sustenance to our minor league baseball players, as if we didn't know that we were the cheap ones in doing this. Minor league baseball players, I mean, you got to really, really love it. This is the thing about, when people talk about, well, I want my kids to play baseball or basketball. I don't want them to play football. There's too much risk of injury or whatever. Baseball is the sport that people most often go to, it feels like, as what they want their kids to try and go pro in. But you got to make the majors first. And the minor league baseball circuit sounds like a particular kind of hell.
Quite a grind.
I mean, and the money in it is not there either. Like, not only are you on like terrible bus trips to places outside of Nashville, like where's the most, what is the best destination minor league baseball city? We would have to look it up, and I'm not going to do that to Lucas on the fly when we're in the middle of a bit. But I mean, it's so stupid. Can I get a Bruce Drennan telling me how stupid that is?
Oh, yeah. You're an idiot.
You're an idiot. Minor league affiliates for the Oakland A's do better. Now, I'm going to go with a popular pick because Scott Bowen, and if you want to get in on the conversation, if you want to nominate somebody for the dumbest thing in sports this week, 615-737-1045 is how you do so. Or you can chime in on the chat on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch. For me, I will go something that took place, what was this? Not last night, but that would have been Monday night with LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. What's happened to LeBron right now? They're currently down 3-2 in their playoff series against the Phoenix Suns, Chris Paul's Phoenix Suns. And not only can LeBron not carry his team, it seems, when Anthony Davis goes down with any number of injuries, because Anthony Davis always seems to be hurt. It's like the Marcus Mariota situation, always questionable to return Anthony Davis with any number of maladies that he's dealing with. It's unfortunate because I like watching those two play. They're incredible. But LeBron James, in a 115-85 blowout loss at Phoenix in Game 5 of their first-round Western Conference playoff series, they are now one defeat away from having this season and LeBron's ability to keep his legacy in the same kind of conversation as Michael Jordan. One loss away from having that all nuked. You know, a lot of people have called the Miami Heat bubble frauds because they got swept in their first-round playoff series against a much better Milwaukee Bucks team than the one we saw, it seems, a year ago. Bubble frauds, because obviously everything is semi-normalized in the NBA playoffs. They're removed from the bubble. The shooting numbers were outrageous. Things seem to have come back to level at this point. But in the middle of this, with about 5.5 minutes left to go, LeBron James just walks off the court, just leaves the game. I love to watch LeBron James play. I have an incredible amount of admiration for LeBron James as a human being, as a basketball player, as an athlete. And very rarely, for all of the time that LeBron James spends with every microphone, camera, spotlight, all of it, pointed in his direction because of his greatness, he has so few rare public moments. Now, there have been a handful, especially over the last calendar year, when Daryl Morey has the tweet taking up against China and LeBron is in damage control, basically trying to protect the partnerships with the NBA. That was a bad look for LeBron in a way that I found distasteful. But outside of that, LeBron James, I have a great amount of admiration for. Just stay on the court. 5.5 minutes left to go in the game. Frank, I'm blanking on the last name. Vogel. He used to be the Pacers coach against those Miami Heat teams when LeBron James and the Big Three were there. Frank Vogel does his media availability after this game and says, yeah, he just left early to get treatment. We weren't going to play him in a blowout loss, understanding it's the playoffs, yada, 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 just left early to get treatment. You got to wait 5 minutes and 32 seconds or however long it was. You can't wait 5 minutes and 32 seconds before you walk back into the locker room. Just act like you're present. I understand that it's all about him. It's always all about LeBron James. But at least don't make it so obvious that you think it's all about you too. It's just optics. It's just that simple. It's the dumbest thing that I've seen in sports this week, and we gotta have somebody to scorn him the way that I want to scorn him. Fair weather idiot. That's a good one. Bruce Drennan is a fountain of wonders. 615-737.
Man of many talents. Broadcasting, tirades, gambling.
615-7, jail time.
Yeah.
615-737-1045. We put it to a Twitter poll as well. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Lucas, if we can bring some of those up, at Buck Reising is where you vote on the Twitter polls that we put out. By the way, Twitter poll is going to be a little different today at the end of the show because we didn't mention this off the top. Shane Bowen and Todd Downing are going to speak to the media for the first time since they both got their promotions. Titans offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. That's going to happen right as our last segment begins. So we're going to carry that first part of the press conference instead of doing the polls. Meanwhile, what are the people saying at Buck Reising on Twitter, Lucas?
Farsender says somebody on ESPN who he says might have been Ryan Clark saying, quote, you're going to leave Matt Ryan for Ryan Tannehill? Might as well just retire when talking about Julio.
Why does Ryan Clark hate the Titans? He had this whole thing about Derrick Henry running soft last year, if I remember correctly. Now he's saying that you might as well retire if you're going from Matt Ryan to Ryan Tannehill? Ryan, you got to watch these two guys. It's a lot of Ryans. Matt Ryan, Ryan Clark, Ryan Tannehill.
M. Wood says all the anger at Naomi Osaka, it's unwarranted.
So we touched on this a little bit in the notebook yesterday with Naomi Osaka. I struggle with it, right? Because I'm a media member. I require access to the athletes, Zoom or otherwise, to be able to do my job, to be able to continue to, pay my mortgage, to be able to sustain the economy around sports. Media need athletes. Now, athletes don't necessarily need media anymore, which we're starting to see because instead of, the French Open saying, hey, Naomi Osaka, if you don't do your media availability, we're going to default you. And she says, no, kick rocks. I'm going to withdraw myself from the tournament. I'm going to do me. I'll
As
take
a favorite to win the tournament.
Right. Is she not the biggest star? She upset Serena Williams to kind of take this place as the focal point in all of women's tennis. She's probably the biggest name in women's tennis right now, correct?
I would still say the average sports fan knows Serena Williams over Naomi Osaka. But yeah, based on results, probably.
Okay, which is fair. Serena, a bigger brand. But for me, I struggle with this because she's citing mental health issues as to why she doesn't want to field questions from the media. And the international media can be very, very blunt, all right? It's not, Nashville sports media gets accused of being soft. That's probably true to some degree. And we're not, we're at least, I think the vast majority of us, we're going to not attack you whilst asking you a question about something that may be a sensitive subject matter, right? Like, for example, if we ever get the opportunity to speak to Rashad Weaver, that's probably going to be an uncomfortable conversation. Now, the Titans don't have to make Rashad Weaver available to us in the Zooms because the Zooms allow them to, basically restrict who we get to talk to, and it limits the access in that way. Understandable. It's a pandemic. Those are the restrictions. Those are the restrictions that have to take place. But also, it just stops the Rashad Weaver story cold. Like, there's no way for us locally to be able to advance the Rashad Weaver story in a way that I would imagine most Titans fans care about. Naomi Osaka, she's saying, if you want to hear from me, follow me on Instagram, where she's got, I'm sure, millions of followers in international tennis. But the media, for however low of an opinion, because people really seem to hate the media, and not just, as a result of the last 4 years, but really, really seem to dislike the media, where the media is the only thing keeping it from being constant rah-rah go athlete, covering up all of the less glamorous, less, player or team-friendly storylines that I think some of you guys are interested in. Maybe people don't care about that stuff anymore. Because media seems to be the only one who's pissed about Naomi Osaka not talking to the media. It's unfortunate. What else do we have?
Eldon English says polls that have two choices, but the choices are the same answer. And Eldon, that's just what we do around here.
No, because what was the poll he's talking about?
What was the one we had today?
Do I need to spend less time on Twitter? Yes or yes?
Yeah.
I certainly don't need to spend more time on Twitter. Sometimes you just got to take away all reasonable doubt. Yes or yes, should I spend less time on Twitter? The answer is always yes.
And Stephanie, this is the last one I'll throw out, says the fact that the Rams were trying to pursue Julio Jones with no draft picks until the year 3000.
Somebody went at her about the draft compensation. I saw that because it popped up in my mentions. Just make it a joke. Everybody settle down. That what's one of the dumbest things in sports this week to me? The amount of overreaction I've seen from niche fan bases. Like V-Liv tweeted us, I was going to bother a bunch of Vandy baseball fans because when Trevecca's head coach Chase Sane was on with us, I called Trevecca men's baseball, or I guess Trevecca's baseball. I don't know why I say men's baseball. Trevecca baseball, Nashville's team, which immediately just a knife to the side of Vandy fans who have done nothing but win championships in the Division I level. But, we got into a little dust-up with Vandy sports fans yesterday. There's a lot of people nominating our poll about Vandy baseball taking themselves too seriously because they couldn't be bothered to enjoy their moment in the selection committee or selection show, which I thought was a little bit ridiculous. Niche sports fans. Nashville SC, for the way, that they disgustingly attacked on Davenport, which I'm still I'm not quite over, Lucas. I really have. I feel some type of way about soccer fans after that. I don't know if there's. I mean, I'm certain there is something. I'm certain there is something that would kind of salvage my relationship with soccer Twitter, even though I wasn't the one in a fight with them. But I really, really have a low opinion of them after this whole situation.
Yeah, I was surprised at the reaction. Obviously what Don said bothered them so greatly that some of them went at great lengths to attack her, which how much venom was spewed very much surprised me, because I just didn't know Nashville's Twitter soccer community was that big with the amount of people that went at her.
Well, the Preds, we obviously have our relationship with Preds Twitter. Nashville SC Twitter, we don't have a bad relationship with, but I have a bad opinion of them after the way they handled Dawn. And now we have the Vandy baseball people at our necks, because I'm out here calling Trevecca Nashville's team. You got to troll. D Good on YouTube says, soccer fans are hooligans, Buck. What do you expect? I mean, yeah, there's, what's the movie, the famous movie about it's like the Green Street Hooligans or something like that, like a famous English soccer supporter group.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name.
You're the soccer guy. What do you mean? Do better.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
It's all right. That's the dumbest thing in sports this week here on 104.5 The Zone.
You don't know anything. You don't know squat, you stupid idiot.
Thank you, Bruce. Man of many talents and also many rap sheets. Bruce Drennan, a constant presence around this show. Coming up next, we're going to get into some OTA conversation. Green Street Hooligans is right. Look at me. I'm the soccer guy. Thank you,
Is that the Elijah Wood movie?
Why are you asking me questions when I clearly have no idea what you're talking about? Help me do the show. Why do we have to have a conversation like this once a week? Why? Buddy. Wait, but this is what Lucas does. He slinks away from the microphone. He puts his head down.
It is the Elijah Wood movie.
Oh, thank you. Unbelievable. What we're going to talk about coming up next is the veteran players at OTAs. I'm going to be out, hopefully, if the weather holds, at St. Thomas Sports Park for Titans practice. And if you want to get in on the conversation, 615-737-1045, 615-737-1045 is the number. We are going to talk about veterans at OTAs because Ryan Tannehill there's been many videos of him out there throwing at practice. I'm going to tell you who I don't expect to see, having not yet been out there, but just based on doing a little homework, who I do not expect to see out there at OTAs, and why that might be. Scott Bowen says, Buck's total hatred of the Nashville Sounds. 13 in a row and the PCL Player of the Week. No, I don't hate the Sounds. I just, I don't want to talk about the Nashville. 13 wins for the Sounds. It's an incredible job. We want to praise them. We want to praise them for their accomplishments. But I'm sorry. I'm not going to talk about the Nashville Sounds. I'm not going to break it down. I'm not going to talk about the 13 wins in a row. You know what I'll do? I'll go celebrate it by having a tequila rocks in the bandbox. That's what I will do.
Sounds like a good time.
I live close to the Sound Stadium. 615-737-1045. Trey is in Nashville. He wants to talk about Vandy fans. Go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, Buck, just want to let you know, man, don't feel bad about Vanderbilt fans getting butthurt over your love for Trevecca, because I had several friends that played Trevecca baseball throughout the years, and every time they would throw an offer out to scrimmage Vanderbilt would never do it, because in the past, Vanderbilt will get their ass handed to them by Trevecca.
Ooh,
spicy.
Trey, bringing the heat. So now we have legitimate in-town rivalry. I like this. Trevecca versus Vandy. Thank you, Trey, for bringing that to our attention. 615-737-1045. D Good says, I'm here for movie trivia if you need me. Is it Will Compton? Is what Will Compton? He's going to be here. What are you laughing at? You're not helping me again.
There's no context. Is it Will Compton?
Do you understand how hard it is for me to, it is very, very difficult understanding that I have the attention span of a small rodent. Okay? It's a tough scene for me to be able to do this job. But not only that, with the comments that I've got in front of me, Lucas, how many screens of comments do I have in front of me for the people?
4.
4? I've got 5 in my laptop, 6 in my iPad, which is just my unbelievably poisonous Twitter mentions, and then 6, 7, counting the 2 monitors. If you want to count the phone screener in front of me, 8 screens in front of my face.
I got a bunch of screens too, man. We're all doing this. We're all in it together.
All right. I don't think we're in it together. I think you're actively trying to sabotage me so you can take over again like on Memorial Day.
I'm playing both sides, so I always come out on top.
We'll talk about Titans OTAs coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The Titan Station. Yes! This is 104.5 The Zone.
Twitch and Twitter. Always appreciate your guys' interaction there. So OTAs. Now, I have done some digging. I've been informed that if it rains tomorrow, I will not be allowed in the bubble, which makes me very upset because Titans practice is what I do. The Titans are the team that I cover every day. If I'm not able to go to practice, it just leaves me with the Zooms with the players and Vrabel, and those are a necessary evil. I will take any access that I can get at this point, but the Zooms are slowly rotting my brain. Speaking of which, I will be on the Zoom call with Shane Bowen and Todd Downing, Titans defensive and offensive coordinator, coming up at 12:45. We will carry that live for you before Blaine and Mickey take over at 1. So, OTAs in progress. You've seen a lot of hype videos coming out of St. Thomas Sports Park, probably getting you guys excited about football. Ryan Tannehill, chief among them, the featured player at this point of all the Titans. What do you want to call it? Social media propaganda? It's probably not a nice word. They're just trying to get their fans involved. It's nice to see the quarterback, QB1, out there slinging it, getting people excited. Jayon Brown, Rashaan Evans rapping Drake lyrics together, make you feel good before both of them leave. I'm sorry, I'll stop.
Good Lord. Just ruining everybody's day.
Well, yeah, I'm pissed. I want to go to practice tomorrow. I don't want it to rain and then not be able to go to the bubble. Like, I get it that there are certain protocols in place. It's the league's decision, not the Titans' decision. I'm at peace with that, but really I'm not. I'm pissed. I shouldn't complain about things like that because not everybody, very few people get to have the experience that I do as covering an NFL team. It's a great privilege to be able to do a job like this. I don't want to take that for granted. I want to, make light. I mean, I do make light. We basically do a spoof of an actual sports talk radio show from 10 to 1 every day. It's kind of the stated goal. But I want to go. I don't want to sit outside in my car while they're in the bubble practicing and then log into crappy Wi-Fi and do a Zoom with practice that I haven't seen and players that I haven't watched. It just makes me worse at my job, which nobody cares about but me. Well, I don't know. Maybe people care about it because it lessens the information that I'm able to bring you after practice on Friday. So I'm very much hoping that it stops at some point. The rain needs to go away. Dark Gal says on Twitch, sorry, Buck, it's calling for rain tomorrow. Yeah, I checked the radar anyway. But players who are there have been documented at great length. As we said, you've seen Jayon, you've seen Rashaan, you've seen Ryan Tannehill. Saw a couple of glimpses of Cam Batson out there as well. Some of the veterans who were not attending, who did not attend last week's OTAs, right? A lot of people took advantage of Memorial Day weekend, just as many of you did. Completely understandable. But who I do not expect to see out there, one name in particular that I don't think it's going to cause. I mean, I don't know how people are going to react to this, but given that we're having a conversation about Titans wide receivers that they could potentially add, I don't expect to see A.J. Brown out there. Now, I know that he's here. I know that he is in Nashville. I know that he is at the facility. But I am approaching this as if A.J. Brown is not going to be able to go through the kind of, they're not quite practices. Again, they're off-season workouts is basically what OTAs are. What organized team activities, voluntary organized team activities. But A.J. Brown, coming off of 2 knee procedures, at this point, looks to still be working through the rehabilitation process. Now, I'm not saying that to cause an alarm. I guess I'm trying to prepare people for the idea that he might not be ready right away, which I'm sure is going to cause some people some consternation. It's like Caleb Farley. You understood that he had back surgeries coming out of the draft, and then as soon as he went out there for rookie minicamp, everybody's saying, oh, what do you mean? I thought he was going to be past this by now. What do you mean he's still rehabbing a week after the draft? What do you mean he's still going through this rehabilitation process from 2 back procedures? So I'm trying to set the table for people to expect A.J. Brown to maybe not be 100% ready to go as soon as we walk out onto the practice field tomorrow, assuming we're able to walk out onto the practice field. Now, I say I'm working through context clues, right? Because I saw Taylor Lewan take a selfie with him yesterday. They're recruiting Julio Jones to the Titans. AJ's sitting on a training table, so he's clearly at St. Thomas Sports Park. Lewan is clearly there as well. One would assume that Lewan is also going through the rehabilitation process. He's had a substantial amount of time to work his way back from the ACL injury, going down in week 5 and being lost for the remainder of that season. But at least you know that the majority of vets are going to be available there at OTA practice, are starting to filter back in, are starting to work their way in with the rookies, with the undrafted guys. So you're starting to get a better sense of what this team is going to look like. And then you see how the rookies react to the veterans being in the mix, which is also a big part of this. Same thing for Bud and Taylor. They're in the same boat, says Dark Alf. Yeah, Bud Dupree, I don't expect to see him. I don't know whether he's in the facility or not. I have not seen anything from Bud Dupree's social media handles. I have not been able to track down whether he's physically in Nashville quite yet or not. I know Lawan's here. I know A.J. Brown's here. That's just based off social media. You guys could have figured that out. It's not a bunch of hardcore investigative journalism that I've done. But now you see, heading into OTAs, how the rookies and the undrafteds, the guys who have had time to work amongst themselves through rookie minicamp in the first round of OTAs, how they integrate with the vets. Because we've talked to Coach Mack about this before. You're looking for, at this point, not necessarily how you're not running the offense or the defense in its fullest form right now. You're simply trying to see how guys take the meeting to the practice field. Vrabel talks about it all the time. How they're taking what they learn in the meetings to the practice field to then be able to perform once the season comes about, once we get into games, and then they can start the installation process. MB says, I'm not expecting to see much from Dupree until about November, which may be fair, right? We're talking about it's like the first week of December, that Tuesday night game against Baltimore, or maybe a Wednesday night game against Baltimore that kept getting rescheduled because of COVID. They wanted to get it off the ground. It was supposed to happen on Thanksgiving, and then it didn't. All kinds of problems. The field looked like a wreck. ACL, non-contact injury for Bud Dupree in December. So if you're looking at a traditional ACL recovery time, yeah, a reasonable expectation would be to say that Bud Dupree probably will not be ready to go at the start of the regular season. But it's going to be as much about the guys who are not out there, assuming we get to go out tomorrow, as the guys who are out there. The people that we do know out there right now, the starting quarterback and the 2 starting inside linebackers, handful of receivers, and some dudes that you saw last week at OTAs. It's progress. When we come back on the other side, we will recap the Julio Jones conversation before we bring Will Compton in the mix. God help us. That's what's coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Get Jason Martin and Ramon Foster on J. Mart and Ramon tomorrow morning from 6 to 10 on 104.5 The
out. We'll talk to Will about where he thought that conversation was going because he was fresh off. He landed from his bachelor party that morning, went onto the bus and taped an episode with Johnny Manziel.
So Johnny's getting married?
No.
Oh,
Will's
Will's
getting
bachelor
married.
party.
I don't know. I am uncertain of the relationship status of Johnny Manziel. I will not recklessly speculate on live radio. But anyway, in the meantime, before Will gets here, there was a list, God help us, list season in full effect now that we are in the summer months. A list on ESPN.com, or I guess ESPN Plus, that was put out this morning from Mike Clay, ranking the NFL offseason's 25 biggest position upgrades, why the Cardinals, Rams, Browns, and others improved. Okay. So Mike goes through the top 25 lists, or the top 25 impact players that he believes were immediate upgrades over the guys that they replaced. So I'm looking at one. They have J.J. Watt listed as a defensive tackle. I mean, it doesn't matter, I guess. But J.J. Watt, 1. Matt Stafford, 2. Cleveland Browns, John Johnson, the safety, 3. Corey Linsley, a center, 4. New England Patriots, the tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, replacing the guys that they ended up replacing. So you've got to scroll down a while. And I'm looking during the commercial break, because J. Martin Ramon brought this up to me this morning as we were crossing paths on my way from the green room into the radio studio and on their way out after they concluded at 10 a.m. before we took over. So I'm looking through this list, and the list has everybody hot and bothered. I see the New York Giants, Kenny Golladay, Las Vegas Raiders, Yannick Ngakoue, saying, okay, at probably some point I will see Bud Dupree on this list. And the obvious upgrade that he provides to the Titans front line. I'm down here at 11. I see Kyle Fuller for the Denver Broncos. Will Fuller, Miami Dolphins 12. New York Giants, Adoree Jackson. Look at Adoree Jackson making the list. Over Isaac Yiadom? I have no idea who that is. So, yes, we would assume that would be an automatic upgrade. I'm in the 20s. Still don't see Bud Dupree. I get to 20. I see the Cleveland Browns. Edge rusher, Jadeveon Clowney replacing Olivier Vernon. Okay, Clowney makes the list. Clowney was a major impact addition for the Browns, is how this starts. We talking about the same guy? But he's not ranked higher here simply because the man he replaced, Vernon, was pretty good as well. Clowney is a polarizing player as he's flashed his elite ability at times, but also missed action while failing to rack up sacks in recent years. Of course, Mike goes on to write, there is reason for optimism for the Browns. Despite failing to record a single sack last season, Clowney's 18.4% pass rush win rate ranked 17th among 81 edge rushers with over at least 200-plus pass rush attempts. What the hell are we talking about here? Why is Jadeveon Clowney still getting this benefit of the doubt? Did Mike, and listen, I understand a lot. I'm not going to do the whole national media doesn't watch your team thing over and over and over again. I don't know if you guys are tired of it. I'm tired of talking about it, okay? It's the same thing that gets put out into the universe, wash, rinse, repeat, each and every offseason that we do these kind of evaluations. But, Mike can't just go off the numbers without watching how completely and utterly ineffective he was last year, right?
Yeah, that's some serious analytical digging to try to overshadow the fact that he had 0 sacks last season.
It kills me that Clowney's only like a couple months older than me. He's 28 years old. He seems much older than that. I don't know why. Maybe because his body is failing him at this point in his career. And if you want to jump in, 615-737-1045 is how you do so. 615-737-1045. But the idea that Clowney can make this list is an immediate upgrade, but I can't find any. I'm in the honorable mentions portion of it now. Jacksonville Jags, cornerback Shaquille Griffin, New York Jets, Corey Davis made the list. San Francisco 49. It's a bunch of offensive linemen in honorable mention. Desmond King who was not that good for the Tennessee Titans last year, going to the Houston Texans and replacing whoever it is that he replaced, Eric Murray. Okay, sure. How does Bud Dupree not make it in over Wyatt Ray, Tuzar Skipper? He's not replacing Harold Landry, but he's certainly replacing Jadeveon Clowney. Is Mike Clay trying to make the argument to me that Clowney, who he's literally just said, whether you think sacks are a superficial stat or not, this man is out here trying to make the argument that that adding Bud Dupree is not advantageous to the Tennessee Titans over letting Jadeveon Clowney walk. What sense does that make? I don't understand it. There's a bunch of Titans on this list, by the way. Daquan Jones is on here. So the Titans let all the good players go, apparently, according to Mike Clay's list. And they added one who, he doesn't even think is worthy of mentioning here. And Austin Stanley, my tweetmate, I almost said, which I guess could be so.
He's your tweetmate.
Yeah, like I said, I need to get off Twitter. My relationships are stronger on social media than they are in real life anymore. I'm just a scourge of the internet. 615-737-1045. But Austin tweeted Mike Clay and said, "Hey, did you forget about this guy?" I would almost understand if he said to me, "My bad. I forgot about the Titans. I forgot about Bud Dupree." Like, that would make more sense to me than just straight up leaving him off. But the argument, because you got the pass rush win leaderboard for the last, 3 years? No, the last, 2017, 2018, 2019. So this is excluding 2020. Aaron Donald is number 1. Jadeveon Clowney is number 2, tied for number 2 with Robert Quinn, DeMarcus Lawrence, Von Miller. Now, the idea that you're citing numbers, excluding last season, also doesn't make any damn sense to me. This is why I hate list season. They just don't make sense. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Tom is in Clarksville. He wants to weigh in on the pass rush discussion. Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, guys. Last season, did the Titans reach out to Clay Matthews? I know he could have done better than Clowney. And what's Matthews' status for this coming season?
So we appreciate the call, Tom. They did not.
He reached out, right? Didn't he tweet? Hey,
tweeted,
Titans, if you need a pass rusher.
He tweeted the Titans, and they, were like, thanks, but no thanks.
He hadn't played since 2019.
So, nobody picked him up either. There was some kind of weird thing with the Denver Broncos. They were looking at him, or they had said, if you could look that up, Clay Matthews, Denver Broncos, something should come up on the Google machine. But yeah, nobody else really thinks that Clay Matthews is worthy of bringing back in. I understand the last time we saw him, he had 8 sacks for the Rams. But the Titans don't think that he's now they added, 110-year-old Brooks Reed at this point, or at least last season, to try and help their pass rush, which, I think adding Clay Matthews versus Brooks Reed, they were basically the same person, hair and all. But his status for the upcoming season is that he's available. Nobody else seems to be interested in picking him up.
The report was that he turned down interest from the Broncos last season.
Does it say why?
He wanted to come back, but he wanted it to be the right opportunity for him and his family. The report said, quote, Clay remains open to playing in the NFL in 2020, provided it's the right opportunity for him and his family. 35 years old.
So Tennessee was the right opportunity. Denver isn't winning, I guess. So that would make sense. So he looks at the Titans and said, hey, pass rush help. I could do that. You're winning. I like that. Sign me up. And they said, nah, we'll take Brooks Reed. We will talk with another. I was going to be mean. I was going to say we could talk with another washed Titans linebacker. Will Compton joins the radio show coming up next, but I'll be nicer than that. We'll talk with the boy of Bussin' with the Boys, Will Compton, for his weekly segment On the Other Side. I am Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Off season. Yeah, like that exists. We have no idea what you're talking about. The Titan Station. Brilliant. 104.5 The Zone.
Well, housing prices here are through the roof, and that means you're probably sitting on a ton of home equity. Maybe it's time to turn that equity
Brought to us by All American Pest Control. Plan starting at just $39 a month. Visit yuckbugs.com for all of your pest control needs. So, I appreciate you showing up, even though you're feeling under the weather. But apparently, Lucas says we have breaking news, Will. So hang on to your butt for a second. What we got?
Ooh, let's go. What do we got?
Jeff Goodman reporting that Mike Krzyzewski will retire after next season, and assistant coach John Shire will take over for Duke basketball.
That is massive news. Coach K hanging it up after next season. I don't know who John Shire is. I assume he's an assistant on K's staff at this point. That's going to have massive implications throughout the college basketball world, which I care about. I don't know how much the Nashville community cares about. I feel like most people just live to hate Duke and Coach K, but he's been around for 40 years in our sports lives at this point, out here winning championships and trying. What are you pointing at?
Shire's playing career at Duke ended in 2010. So he's a young guy.
So he's like fresh off the bench.
Yeah, he's the associate head coach right now.
Well, then he can continue to, age gracefully in the role as Mike Krzyzewski did, and then they can take over the hair dye from Mike Krzyzewski, because there's no way that hair color is natural on him anyway. I digress. Will Compton is here with us for his Bussin' with Buck segment. So you had Johnny Manziel on the podcast, Bussin' with the Boys. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever it is you get your podcast. That was a hit, it seems. I got through about half of it on my drive into work this morning. And it's not just with Johnny. Explain to me who the other person on the podcast is, because I wasn't quite sure.
So the other guy on the pod is Mike Stud. He doesn't go by Mike Stud anymore. It's just Mike now. He's an artist that is kind of like, he bounces around everywhere. I lived in LA for 7 years, but he's somebody that he was kind of like back when we were in college, Buck. I would say he was like a young Dan Bilzerian. He was a stud at Duke baseball. He's a really good baseball player. I don't know how long he played the minors or not, but anyway, he transitioned and got into music, got into rap, got into all that stuff, wanted to get in that space. So he transitioned into music. But I know him and Johnny got close. They have a podcast called Ball Don't Lie. And Mike we're going to have on as a solo, but Johnny was in town. So since Johnny was in town, he wanted to do a collab before we did just Mike. But Mike, he's a stud artist. I listen to his music all the time. You guys can go find it on Spotify, all that fun stuff. But yes, he's an artist.
So you did the podcast. I was impressed because it was Monday. It was Memorial Day. You guys working on everybody else's day off, but more so because you came fresh off your bachelor party.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. You can still hear my voice coming back.
It's all right. I'm right there with you. It's a long weekend for everybody, and my vocal cords sound like I went through a cheese grater. But what did I? I'm not going to ask you to divulge any stories from the bachelor party. Of course, that is best left at Lake Travis, where you guys seem to enjoy yourselves. Although I got to ask you about this dude sitting in a hot tub in the middle of an absolute monsoon. Explain for the people the scene and how that came to be. And if they missed any of it, they can check it out on your Instagram story @_Will Compton.
Yeah, so my buddy Kenny Farkas, shout out Kenny. We went out. The boys went out in Austin for day drinking and stuff on Friday afternoon. We're probably out in Austin. We got a party bus from like 11 a.m. We're out to probably like 4 or 5 p.m. And then we come back. We're like, let's recharge before we go out on Rainy Street, before we go out on 6th Street out in Austin. So we come back for a few hours. And in those few hours, apparently like our phone started to go off, like talking about severe thunderstorm warning. And all of a sudden this, like you said, monsoon hits us. Trees are blowing sideways. The patio furniture at the Airbnb gone. All of it's gone. It got blown out. The dock that is tied to the land that we go down and get on our boat for, the thick ass sorry for cursing.
It's all right.
The thick
fine.
cable.
That one you can get away with.
Okay. The thick cable snaps and the dock floats like 20 yards down the water. So when the boat picks us up the next day, like we're having to like jump on the boat like from the land, like the boat's trying to get as close as it can to us. But yeah, so it's storming, it's hailing, like it's a tsunami out there. My man Kenny is just like, dude, we got a hot tub, we got to enjoy the hot tub. I'm not gonna let none of this is gonna stop me from enjoying the hot tub that the Airbnb highlighted. So he's just out sitting in the hot tub while this is happening, while hail's happening and hitting him in the face. Just a legendary story, legendary tale for the old Kenny Farkas.
I assume you have to be belligerently drunk to be willing to do that, because I would have been inside so fast. It looked like the entire surroundings were about to come down on top of his head while he's just sitting chilling in the hot tub.
Yeah. I don't know if he was belligerent. We were in the middle of our Bible study for that day, for that session, for that period of time. But no, it was a great time. It was a great weekend.
So when you saw that Manziel was in town, because he had put it out on Twitter that he was in Nashville for the week. The hockey team invited him to Game 6. I don't know if he ended up going or not. They also invited your boss, Dave Portnoy, which brought a bunch of stupid criticism, which we don't need to get into here. We've talked about it enough at length. But what you obviously having gone through college football yourself in order to get to the pros, Johnny Manziel, like for my I don't know what I want to call it, era. Like, Johnny Manziel is probably the most transcendent college football player that I remember from like my younger years, from my high school and college years. Johnny, with the money signs out there on the field, throwing touchdowns, off-platform throws all over the place. Texas A&M, it was an incredibly raucous environment, and he was in the face of it. And this shooting star across college football. What kind of approach were you looking to take with that interview? Did you guys focus more on how he got to the point where he is now, or the come up, I guess, basically? Or how much did you have the opportunity to get into it with him? Because his story is a fascinating one.
Yeah, he's got an insane story. I mean, you're obviously sitting there, and when Johnny Manziel was going to come on, you're kind of thinking about what questions you want to ask him and everything, because it's like, what is out there that, or what can we ask that's not already out there? Like I said, he's been doing some podcasting and stuff recently as well, to where you can check out how his mindset has kind of changed and shifted. But you more so, we started at the year of the Heisman, and some stories that revolved around him going from fourth string on the depth chart to being the starter within 3 months, essentially getting kicked out or getting suspended from Texas A&M, having to do all this community service stuff. And that was a pretty cool story. But you more so start like, how did it all happen? Like, how has your perspective shifted? What was going on in your mind during this time? Like, when you are Johnny Football, the situations he was in. What I took away from it too was just his extreme ownership and everything, the accountability he has, the perspective he has, a lot of good self-awareness talk, because you got, it's like, all right, if you're this happy individual now, how did you get there from falling so far? Like, in society's eye, you are at the pinnacle, the peak of everything. Like he said in the pod, like, you knew of him, like he could be in the same sense as like LeBron James when he was coming out, not from the body of work, from career, but just how notable he was coming out of college.
Johnny Football.
He was Johnny Football with the money signs and everything. And falling so hard and so fast and so far, it's like, how has everything transpired now with going back to the CFL, going back to maybe one of the arena leagues, like transitioning from all of it? Like, I want to know that mental space. And I know me personally, I wanted to ask him the question, being an undrafted guy and being in the kind of the same years as when he came into the league. Like, when you see a first rounder fall like that and not understand the opportunity that they have, that somebody like me being undrafted, who knows what I would do to have an opportunity like you to be a first round draft pick, to be in all the situations that you're in. You're getting all these second and third chances. And as an undrafted guy, you kind of sit back pissed off. Like, this dude has no clue like what he has. Like, if I was a first round pick, I would be X, I'd be Y, I'd be Z. Like, so being able to ask him that was a big question I wanted to ask him, or him actually feel from my perspective what it looked like on the outside from my view. And a lot of good questions were answered. He did a great job. I know Taylor was like, so you don't have any regrets, or you would do it the same way? And he was like, yeah, I wouldn't change anything, ultimately, because he's in the headspace he's in now. And Taylor was like, that's interesting. And it was kind of like a pause for a second. You kind of didn't know which way the interview might go, but I thought it was really good, man. It's not like he's been on many platforms where he's sitting there talking with other athletes that are still playing. Taylor, they were in the same draft class.
That's right.
Taylor has his party days. Like, we're all kind of sitting there amongst football players, just kind of talking about it all. So it was really good locker room talk.
Locker room talk. Will Compton of Bussin' with the
Well,
Boys.
that's what it is.
I understand. Will Compton of Bussin' with the Boys is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. That's not where my mind goes to for obvious reasons. Anyway, we are going. Listen. You're getting off the hook. I understand that you're feeling under the weather, so I'm going to let you go a little early today because Shane Bowen is holding. Don't make a face at me.
Wait.
Make a face
You let
at me.
go early because I'm feeling under the weather?
No, that's.
Coaches coming on, you got to prep for them.
I don't have to prep for them. I have to do a live radio show while being in a Zoom press conference. It's a difficult degree, or it's a higher degree of difficulty. So you luck out, so you don't have to spend any more time with me. You can sleep and rest on the couch and get your stuff together.
Look, I love spending time with you, bro. Like, contrary to what we feed the people, I enjoy this little segment we have. I enjoy our little banter. And also, before I go, there's a good story about him allegedly collecting money in college.
Ooh, that's a nugget.
It's a good story too. You will have to see it. Like the whole going down for, I want to say, I don't know if it's like you know when AJ Green, I want to say it was AJ Green got popped for like exchanging jerseys for money and stuff down in like Miami or something like that.
Yeah,
I think it has to revolve around that time, and Johnny has a good story on it. And he's like, what happens if somebody hears this and wants to, like Reggie Bush you? And he's like, he has some choice words, but it's a good story.
That's why you listen to Bussin' with the Boys for Locker Room Talk this weekend, or this week's episode, available now wherever it is you get your podcasts. Subscribe, rate, review the YouTube episode with just Mike, not Mike Stud, and Johnny Manziel on the bus with Taylor Lewan and Will Compton is available to you now. I saw Charo in the background. Tell her I said hello, and you can enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, brother. Thank you, guys.
Get the hell out of here. Will Compton of Bussin' with the Boys, presented by All American Pest Control. Plan starting at just $39 a month. Visit yuckbugs.com. All right, so we did not tell people that we would be letting Will go early today, but this is a little bit, we're juggling plates at this point, all right? You got Shane Bowen and Todd Downing, Titans defensive and offensive coordinator. They're hosting a Zoom availability at 12:45. We're going to carry as much of that as we can live on the air. So here instead, we are going to do what would normally be the end of the show. So let's play a little poll question, Russian roulette. Lucas, who do you have for me today?
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Because the polls have closed and the votes have been tallied, it's time for a poll update. And he's a good boy. Buck Reising Show producer and correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
He's a good boy. Go ahead, good boy.
Does Buck need to spend less time on Twitter? 68% say yes, 32% say yes.
None of them are wrong. I need to log the hell off sometimes. Twitter conversations are stupid because you can just have them over text. But every once in a while, I get caught up in my own air. And the Twitter is a powerful drug. But I have had several people tell me that they would pay me to tweet more, which would be, detrimental to my good health. I'm trying to keep it together, guys. Work with me here.
I got in bed last night thinking, I'm going to read. I'm going to read to sleep. And then I just got stuck on my phone and fell asleep on Twitter.
Did you really? What are you reading anything good right now?
There is a biography on my nightstand about Stonewall Jackson. That is very interesting.
Have you started it?
I've read about 10 pages. But those 10 pages.
Riveting.
How long will the Julio Jones sweepstakes drag out?
Until the end of time.
A day, a week, a month, or until training camp, as Ian Rappaport didn't report, but suggested the other day. Majority 45% say 1 week, 27% saying until training camp, 15% say a day, 13% say a month.
Yeah, it's good. I feel like we're going to be here a minute. I'm worried. Not just because, I have no vested interest. It's obviously better for me and better for the radio show and better for the primetime show on A to Z Sports. It's better for anything at this point for me or for the Titans to sign Julio Jones. Nothing bad happens to me if they sign Julio Jones.
Everybody wins if the Titans sign Julio Jones.
Sure.
You get to see the content between he and A.J. Brown, more explosive offense.
I just don't want people to get tired of talking about it because it's obviously one of the biggest stories in sports. So we want to make sure that we don't burn people out on that. But then the burden of creativity comes to me. Now, what I will say before we get to the next poll is Ron Slay is in the chat on Facebook. He's not physically in the building, but he's now in the building via the chat. Somebody has informed Ron Slay from literally 3 hours ago that I was complaining about him. Slay, if you can hear me, respond in the chat on Facebook Live, because he says he's in there patiently waiting. He said he has been roused. We tried to call him on the radio show.
Tried to call him.
He ignored our call. Disrespect. We have Ron Slay is how tall? He's 6'8". I'm not going to guess his weight because that would be disrespectful. He says he can hear me. Good. Slay, I love you. You're my brother. But so help me God, if you don't clean up this clutter in this studio, I am one man and I feel like I'm drowning in it. This is unacceptable. There are tubs of, not just tubs. I did ignore the call, says Ron. Coward. It's like Mad Dog says, come on talk shows. He says it's my favorite part. Shut up, but come on talk shows. Say something to me.
Say that to me. Say that to anybody. Say it to somebody.
Yes, that's right. Ron Slay, get the hell in here for 3HL today and clean up all this crap. It's enough. There's literally, if you're watching on Zone TV, there's a giant bottle of Fireball that for whatever reason lives in this studio. Now, I had thought at one time that the bottle of Fireball was full.
It looks full.
It does because of the way that the bottle is colored. But it is in fact empty. So I'm going to accuse Ron Slay of drinking this entire, it's literally, this is the biggest thing of Fireball I've ever seen in my life. And the fact that it's been drunk and still lives in here.
Until today, I thought that thing was full of Fireball.
Get all of this stuff out of the studio. There's cocoa butter lotion in here. Listen, Slay, if you're ashy, I understand. Do it at home.
Just enjoy it an hour later.
No, I don't want an hour later.
Enjoy the snacks that Slay has so kindly provided to all of us.
They're everywhere.
You'll feel better about it.
I'm not going to feel better about it.
Have an omega-3 pill.
I don't want an omega-3 pill. I don't want all these cutouts around me. I'm a one-man show. You're in an entirely different studio than me, okay? I feel crowded. There are 7 seats in here. You could do a radio show with 7 people sitting in this console, and I feel claustrophobic because of how much crap is in here. Ron Slay says, thank you, Pan, on Facebook Live. Slay, I'm going to throw out this bottle. There's no reason to have this. Why is this in here? Get it the hell out of here.
You going to walk out of here with the Fireball bottle?
No, I'm going to throw it in the recycling bin that sits in here. This Titans, this Titans monkey that is sitting in here, a giant fist of, I probably ought to be more specific. I'm using terms that, could otherwise be construed in negative fashion, which is not something that I'm trying to do. What the baby going to do, Buck, if you're doing all the crying? I'm going to continue to cry. When?
Nobody's touching the Coach Mack bobblehead, though.
Okay, there's 2 of them. We can do without.
We're keeping both.
Only because I love him more than anybody else. Will we keep the 2? But like the porn casting couch is in here. There's a dirty pillow from probably 1983. There's still a blood stain on the floor.
It all adds character.
This is not character. It's disgusting. We have any poll questions left?
Who do you not expect to see at Titans training camp? Daniel Ryan says Grover Cleveland. Ben Wright says Vlad the Impaler. Zach Bingham says Casey Anthony. But there are some serious ones. Farsender says Caleb Farley. Matthew says Bo Brinkley, R.I.P. He didn't die. He's just not on the team
still
anymore.
With us. What do you mean, R.I.P.?
Just not on the team anymore.
Jesus.
Eldon English says Isaiah Wilson. James Hughes says Vic Beasley. Brian says John Cougar Mellencamp. So largely trolls. A few saying Julio Jones. Shane says Kevin Dodd. And Pat Dino says Rashad Weaver with the eyeball emoji.
No, Rashad Weaver is there pending the legal process. The person that I don't expect, I know he's like Ron Slay. He's in the building. I'm convinced Ron sleeps. I'm convinced Ron sleeps in the green room. Like, I'm pretty sure he hides under that cabinet. Just wandering the halls yesterday at 8 a.m. Ron, you don't go until 3. Go home.
He walks into the studio with his toothbrush. Like, morning, guys.
Unbelievable. I love Ron Slay to death. Also, get this crap out of here. Enough.
David says Darrington Evans, who has been present.
Darrington Evans has been there. Somebody is calling the show. I don't know if it's Ron Slay. It's probably not Ron Slay because he ducked our calls earlier. But we will come back and we will play for you the Shane Bowen, Todd Downing media availability. That is what's coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
More Titans talk than anyone else. What a catch! Your home for Titans football and the flagship of Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
job has changed from last year? Are you, is it a little easier to just focus on the entire defense at this point?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's changed. It's definitely changed. Just the position, the title, the stuff that comes with it. Having control over the whole unit. My perspective on everything, making sure we're all on the same page, seeing things the same way, and ultimately being the final voice, right? So it has changed in that regard. It's been great. The players have been great. We're doing a lot of new things, a lot of different things, just in how we go about our day, how we go about our business, and then obviously schematically some things change as we go with all the new personnel and everything else. So it's been good up to this point.
Teron?
Yeah, Coach, looking at you at practice, you're going from group to group. That's something that you didn't get to do before. How much does that allow you to really, sprinkle your flavor on this overall defense?
Yeah, it helps a bunch. I mean, I think first and foremost, it helps just with the relationship with all the players across the board, getting there, seeing them work, seeing how they work, being able to, we always talk about take stuff from the meeting room to individual to group to team, and seeing all those different techniques we talk about that we show on film and being able to talk through that stuff with them on the field as well. Honestly, if you can correct things in the moment, it's always better than doing it after the fact. But I think it's been great for me to do, just in terms of building these relationships with these guys and kind of continuing forward to taking that leadership role on the whole unit.
Terry?
Shane, you added Janoris Jenkins, drafted Caleb Farley to kind of revamp the secondary. With given their skill sets, how much is being able to play more press man coverage going to be a priority? And
yeah, I think we got some good play. Obviously, Janoris has done it a long time. We still got to wait and see with Caleb. He's obviously not doing anything right now for us, so we'll kind of wait and see. But I mean, Janoris has played a long time. He's had a lot of success in this league. So I think as we get him here, we get our hands on him. Again, like, it's always evolving with what we see these guys can do, what they can't do, but finding ways to be more aggressive in coverage, to challenge receivers more. I think that's all part of it as we progress on, whether it's those two or any of these other DBs, linebackers that are playing in coverage.
John Lennon?
Hey, Shane. Yeah, as you mentioned, obviously a lot of changes in terms of whether it's rookies or free agents added and some people gone too. If there's been a consistent theme to the additions that you guys have made on defense, whether it's free agent or rookies, is there a thread or a theme that can be drawn from all these players, something that you'd like to see in this defense that maybe wasn't there as much last year?
Yeah, I think the one thing that has stood out to me with all these guys, they've all been engaged. I think they all love ball. They've embodied of what we're doing. They ask good questions. They're learning whether they're here or not. They're taking the time to learn and understand what we're doing defensively and positionally. I've been pleased with all of them up to this point. I do. I think they're really engaged. I think they're excited about the opportunity here, as we all are, even myself, the coaches, and the returning guys. We're looking forward to the opportunity, and we're excited to have some new pieces, and we're kind of starting from square one all over again, trying to rebuild this thing with the new guys that we got. But I've been encouraged by all of them.
Buck?
Hey, Shane, given some of the struggles that the defense had, it was, I know you guys don't pay attention to outside noise, but it was received not necessarily well that you had gotten the promotion as defensive coordinator. But what does it kind of say about the faith that Mike Vrabel has in you to be able to promote you and understand, all of the mitigating circumstances that went into the struggles last season and still have the faith in you to be able to excel at this level?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of coached me in this deal. He's brought me up through this profession in some regard. I think just looking back at the position groups when I had them, OLB-wise, some of the things we've done in the past year, even last year, some of the good, some of the bad, there was stuff, obviously, we got to get corrected. But, I mean, I appreciate his confidence in me. Again, just like all these players we talk about every day, like we work every single day to prove ourselves and to make this team better. Like regardless of the individual, whoever it is, like we're all in this together to do whatever we see fit or whatever's needed to find ways to win games in whatever fashion we got to do. We got to play better defensively. We do. I'm excited. I'm encouraged about where this thing's going right now. But again, I'm just like everybody else, man. I'm putting in the work day in and day out, trying to do everything I can to help this team win.
Thanks.
Paul?
Shane, a lot of snaps lost with Daquan Jones at nose. I'm wondering what you think about where T.R. Tart is and the opportunity for he and other guys known and unknown at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, those guys, they're getting a bunch of reps right now. They're out there, they're working, they're showing improvement day in and day out. I mean, I've been pleased with them up to this point, Paul. I think it's been encouraging with those guys. Obviously, once training camp rolls around, really up front, that's when you get the true, I guess, litmus test on those guys, just in terms of where they're at when we put pads on and we start going and it's play in and play out. And ultimately, man, it's the consistency. Like that's what you lose when you lose a vet, like the consistency of doing it, the guys that have done it a long time. And it's up to us as coaches and them as players to grow up, to become from year one to year two. There should be incremental growth, and just being able to find that consistency in their game. And they're putting the work in right now. It's getting there, but we'll have to see come training camp where that thing goes with that group.
Titans defensive coordinator, officially Shane Bowen, meeting with the media right now. Had to jump in, jump out, wrap up the radio show. We've had a lot of fun today. Blaine and Mickey are going to keep it rolling. Coming up next, I'll talk to you tomorrow on 104.5 The Zone.
Want more fun from J-Mart and Ramon? Yes, that also means the pettiness. Hang out with Jason and Ramon whenever you want. Subscribe to J-Mart and Ramon wherever you get your podcasts.